Hey guys, what's going on? Same Circle Wrestling, back again. It's been quite some time. It feels like it's been forever. It's just me and Bill today. Tim was busy shooting his other podcast, which I believe he plugged in the last episode. And I don't know how I can actually remember that far back, because it feels like really it's how long has it been? Probably 3 months at least.
At least.
But yeah, we have a lot of things we probably should cover, but it's been like such a huge gap of time that like it's gonna be hard to recall most of it. But most importantly, we remember that we've seen a title change multiple times, and we primarily because Roman Reigns won the title a couple months back. Currently, Triple H is the WWE Champion, which is very odd to say, given it's 2016. So, I mean, we've seen a couple interesting things, I guess, overall. I personally haven't paid as much attention to WWE in the last couple months as I should be. But, I mean, that's just because I haven't found it super interesting with the whole Roman Reigns storyline.
It's really been a hard product to stay involved in, more so than usual in the past few months, and it's not even so much a quality thing. I mean, the show on its own merits has gotten a little better just by sheer composition. It's just, there's really not as much to give a shit about lately, and for whatever reason, it's hard to point out, but there's just not that one thing there to keep you interested.
Yeah, I mean, when you got, like, I feel like Roman Reigns lacks charisma, so it's hard to carry the show with a guy that really hasn't built his character yet. And it's interesting that he's the main event guy, and everybody else on the card, every week on Raw seems to be in the same spot, and no one's really getting a push. No one's there's nobody that like I can put my finger on right now and be like, oh, this guy is probably gonna have the belt in this many months. Like, I guess there's a build up right now with Dean Ambrose and Lesnar, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. But most likely it's gonna end the same way every other Lesnar situation's ended, with Lesnar winning. But I mean, I guess with Dean Ambrose, you always have that Roman Reigns factor, this sort of brotherhood type thing that they have going on. So his only hope really is a little help from his friends. But I mean, what do you think that's gonna go down at? Fastlane, most likely, or?
I feel like it's
save it for Mania.
I feel like it's almost telegraphed that Roman's going to come out on top for Fastlane, because you still have the lingering tension where it looks like they're building Brock versus the Wyatts for WrestleMania. So I expect them to get involved and cost Brock the finish. And then otherwise, it looks like they've only been doing the faintest foreshadowing, which I have to give them credit for, because otherwise it would be completely obvious, but it does seem that they are finally teasing a possible Ambrose heel turn on Reigns, a concept of which I'm still not a huge fan of, just because the strength of the heel character we've seen Ambrose play in the past on the indies, I really feel like that's something that should be built up for a long time. That really needs to be the slowest of slow burn angles.
Yeah.
And he's performed quite well enough as a face to keep that character going on, even if it is getting a little stale and it's not great for his ring work, but he's good enough at staying over with the fans that he can keep it going. But I think they're going to push the button on the turn, if not at Fastlane, then at Mania.
Yeah, and I don't think, it's like Ambrose's character doesn't, it can get stale, but it's because of the way, his bits are written. He has so much potential, like, for these crazy bits, and like, I feel like we've said it a million times with the Austin comparison, and he really is like the anti-hero kind of character where you can throw him in all these crazy scenarios and it'll work. But like we've seen a very serious lack of that, and I still think that eventually down the line they'll go to that, and if they do go heel with him, I mean I think he can pull it off. But I think where he's at, like as far as his character, is perfect. It's just that they don't. I feel like he's underutilized.
And that's unfortunately the story with the whole roster. I mean, we've said it a million times. What you can see, they have the germs of the good characters. It's just the writing is not there to back it up.
Yeah, and they have it. They have plenty of characters, and now we have social outcasts and what's the other faction called there?
League of Nations.
League of Nations, and it's like you got essentially you're geared up for the faction kind of warfare thing, and that hasn't culminated yet either, which that could be a WrestleMania situation or even a post-WrestleMania situation when you hit that reset button. But you're building up these factions, and it seems like they're really not doing much with them. We saw them tonight, and that was a whole Titus O'Neil situation, which really, if it's Titus O'Neil situation, I'm not interested, because there's no character there. But like we said, there's so many characters that could be utilized in so many storylines, and we harp on this because it's just, there's nothing more we can say at this point. Like, I feel like Vince McMahon just doesn't want to, like, it's almost a bother to him, Like, I feel like the whole writing situation it's not his thing anymore. Realistically, I'm not super excited for WrestleMania this year. Like, there's nothing, at least mostly because there hasn't been anything announced or anything that's noticeably, like, obvious that's going to happen. But I right now as it stands, maybe after Fastlane we'll have some sort of interest in it, but right now I'm not super looking forward to WrestleMania, besides, the drinking and eating.
True, and that's the problem is, thanks to a lot of injuries that have hit over the past few months, we are in one of those periods where you can just tell that all of their plans have been blown to shit,
right.
And they're playing it by ear. And it's not to say they're not playing it by ear most of the time. By all reports, they're rewriting Raw up until the minute it goes on the air, but when the few overarching plot lines that you are trying to service get shattered, there's just no real direction, and that's showed in a big way for the past couple months.
Right, and that's really the problem, is that they can't recover from those kind of situations, and they need to be able to do that, because you can't keep people interested when you don't have anything for them to be invested in. There's not a single storyline really right now that is ongoing week after week that makes me want to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, there was the whole Roman Reigns versus the Authority storyline, and that's even managed to be put on the back burner.
Right.
And so there's not at all an overarching narrative, really.
It's like, when they gave Triple H the belt, it sort of kills that storyline off because he's not going to be in action all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to carry Raw, and, this week, pretty much the main situation was the Daniel Bryan retirement, and actually Raw went like 3.5 hours. And
yeah, I think it went off the air at 11:25,
yeah, almost
which is
11:30.
the latest I have ever seen Raw go off.
And then they did another probably 5 to 10 minutes on the network of basically nothing, just him walking around talking to fans and such. But, yeah, Daniel Bryan is done. I don't know exactly what the situation was, like contract-wise. I've heard that he was cleared to work, but, I mean, after hearing his speech, maybe that's not true. I really don't know. I'm assuming that we'll have something that sheds a little bit more light on that down the line, but, that's it for Daniel Bryan, most likely.
Yeah, and the reports I've been seeing today, and he touched on it a little bit in his retirement speech, was that he had been getting cleared by outside doctors, but the WWE's doctor, Joseph Maroon, who was recently featured as the NFL's resident doctor who was at the center of their concussion scandals. Basically, their in-house quack refused to clear Daniel Bryan, but then in just the past couple weeks or so, he received another test from an outside doctor, and the results did not come back as positive as the ones he had been receiving from his doctors. So that definitely pushed him a little bit in the direction towards retirement. Right. And then I'm sure this contract situation didn't help either. Reports on that were that Bryan wanted his release from his contract, but WWE pulled the same trick they pulled in the Rey Mysterio negotiations. Extension. And because Bryan had been out injured for so long, they were able to unilaterally extend the contract for another year. And legally, if that were to be challenged, it probably would not hold up because WWE's contracts almost never hold up in a court of law. Yeah. Especially with the whole independent contractor situation. So that's a messy situation.
I mean, I guess it all depends on his original contract and whether or not that was allowed to happen. And if that is the case, you got you gotta have an agent that, sees that and says, what the fuck is this? Why should I sign this contract when this is the situation? Why should you be allowed to do this? If Daniel wants to go somewhere else, he should be able to.
And that goes back to WWE's status as being by far the top company without any real competition, as they have that leverage to just say, oh, well, here's the contract, take it or leave it. And right. I mean, it hurts the business. It's not good for the workers. I mean, it's just not a good situation, especially when that being that company at the top in particular, and the way the labor practices of the whole industry aren't terrific, really, but WWE is just as bad as any of the rest of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, really, there's not much to have to really talk about as far as WWE storylines go.
Well, there was one big piece of news since we last had our show, was the major signings and the Royal Rumble debut of AJ Styles. Yeah. And that's a big deal. It was an item of news that we never thought we would see.
Yeah, and he's been working with Jericho to get that rub that Jericho loves to do, working with the young talent. That's really the only reason he's there, is to always, help those guys out.
Yeah, and
I don't think he'd even be there if AJ didn't come around.
And I have heard that Jericho is essentially their gatekeeper that they use. They've done it quite a few times. They'll throw a debuting guy to Jericho just because he's been with the company working that style for so long that he's that good of a gatekeeper. He is a good test to see if you can work the WWE style or not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and not only that, people aren't going to protest seeing Chris Jericho,
Yeah, even if he hasn't been doing great as of late, he's still got that nostalgia factor. He can still work a crowd decently well, even if he has reduced himself to spitting his catchphrases.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy from that era. It's even with the Dudley Boys, it's it's not like they're doing crazy shit and, being super impressive. It's the same stuff they've always done, but it's the nostalgia factor, like you said. But I mean, really, like I said, I haven't been super invested in WWE right now, and luckily Lucha Underground just started 2 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago. Today's a Monday night. But I think we got some cool stuff to look forward to on Lucha Underground. The end of the last episode, we saw Rey Mysterio's first appearance, so his debut is likely this week. We also have 2 more debuts, most likely this week, from what I saw. I think there's a new female luchador coming in, and whoever he was talking to at the end of the episode. So those 2 are most likely coming in as well. Who else is in Lucha Underground this year that wasn't in there last year?
They just had PJ Black debut last
yep.
episode, the former Justin Gabriel.
Yep.
And well, I mean, he's never really been that strong of a character or a gimmick guy, but I do think he's a pretty good fit for their ring work style.
Oh yeah. So it's like the new temple is essentially, it's not run by Cueto. You basically see what's his face there sitting in the throne the entire time. Mil Muertes.
Which is a really cool gimmick to have right there.
Just a guy sitting there.
Just the dominant champion watching everything unfold from his throne of skulls.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's an easy job, you know. You get paid and you just have to sit there and, you get to watch the matches too.
One thing to note is first episode of the season, they had a triple threat match with the former trios champions of Angelico, Son of Havoc, and Ivelisse for a world title shot. And Ivelisse won and went on to face Mil Muertes, which is not something you see a lot where a woman wrestles for her promotion's top title. I think Chikara actually just had an angle where, honestly, Kimberly won their top title, and that, I believe, was the first time that a woman won her a open gender top title for her promotion.
Yeah.
So it's a big moment, and Lucha Underground is continuing the trend. They had Ivelisse look reasonably strong. Mil Muertes was still presented as being head and shoulders above her, as he is with most people, but she did put up a fight.
Yeah. I thought it was good the way they did that, and especially, the first episode of the season, it lets you know that this shit's going to be unpredictable. And they also signed for season 3, so that's nice. So we know that's coming. There's no end of the season like is Lucha Underground coming back like there was last year. Or at the end of last season, rather.
And that's a big deal, because if this season, as I've heard, if these seasons are going to be about 25 episodes each, then after the end of season 3, if they keep up that schedule, that will put Lucha Underground at about 90 episodes strong, which is getting really close to the 100 episode barrier you need to hit for a show to be a viable pick to air in syndication.
Yeah.
And that'll be a big deal for Lucha Underground. Because if you can watch, if another channel with more exposure would happen to pick that show up, then it would blow up even further. And
right, because not everybody has El Rey.
And luckily, Lucha Underground's viewership has been increasing. I want to say it was a record high for the first episode, and then they gained about, I want to say, 25,000 viewers for the second episode, which is not very common in television, where a show gains in viewers as the season goes on. So that is an encouraging trend, especially when the financial aspect of the production hasn't had as much good news as the creative and the viewership numbers.
Yeah, and you wonder how that show would go if it was live as well. I would love to see a live Lucha Underground show, even if they just did Ultima Lucha live, like we actually, yesterday, after the Super Bowl, we watched, I think it was the first match from the second episode of this season. It was Johnny Mundo and Killshot.
Dude, wow, I have no memory of that.
Oh, yeah. You probably don't remember that.
I browned out.
That was a great match, though. It's unbelievable that you see a lot of these maneuvers in these matches in Lucha Underground that in the WWE would put somebody away. And in Lucha Underground, they're just, a typical move. And they're always executed better, and that's hilarious to me, because you see Johnny Mundo spear Killshot, and it's like, I've never seen Roman Reigns spear somebody and have it look that good, and it's not even a move that puts the guy away.
Yeah. And Mundo hasn't even always been known as a dude with the cleanest, most precise execution of his moves.
Yeah.
So to see that's a good sign. He has been a lot better in that regard in Lucha Underground. He used to be notoriously sloppy with his finisher there. It goes but now known as Fin del Mundo.
Yeah. I'm interested to see the ways they utilized the temple this year, because last year we saw a lot of climbing the stairs, jumping off of the office, the power bomb through that one storage room. I think that was Muertes that did it to Cage or something. Somebody got power bomb through it.
I think it was to Phoenix.
Yeah, it was. You're right. I think that was Ultima Lucha too. Or at least it was close to it. But just the way they utilize the whole arena, and it's changed up now, like I said. So, they're going to have so many new possibilities. And, that's what's really cool about this promotion is really you can just do whatever the hell you want, and they're not going to have these restrictions on you like they have in the WWE. I'm sure there are restrictions, but they're nowhere near, what WWE is putting on you. You got to be safe in WWE because otherwise, that's their money. Even though, like we said, there's not really anything we're grabbing onto right now, so you don't have to preserve anybody because there's no storyline.
Yeah, and they still manage to get injured all the time just because the schedule is just absolute murder.
Yeah.
They're on the road for 200, 250 days a year, and there's a lot of talk about how John Cena has been pushing these Olympic weightlifting regimens on the talent, encouraging them to do the Olympic weightlifting type of workouts, and you're seeing that pop up as a whole rash of shoulder injuries in the company as of late.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, the schedule is just unbelievable. Like, you literally you're lucky to be home like twice a month, and like, I feel like the fact that Daniel Bryan couldn't come back, like, it's the WWE most likely didn't want a lawsuit on their hands. That's part of the reason they didn't clear him. And it's like, considering how much money they make, though, they're selling out arenas daily. Like, you're paying, a couple $100 a ticket sometimes. I mean, they're making money. So I don't think a lawsuit really is a big deal for WWE at this point. But I mean, I think they'd rather just let him go. And I mean, he's, like we said, after we watched his retirement, his announcement, he already had his WrestleMania moment. He's going on top. He's, doing what Peyton Manning just did. He never lost either of his belts. His last match, I think his last match was the Intercontinental title match. And, there's not really a better way to go out, realistically. He's had, that WrestleMania was all about him. And, no regrets, realistically, for him. I mean, he had a phenomenal career, even though it was somewhat short-lived. I don't know. I just feel like, like we said, there's not a whole lot to grasp onto, and it's hard to, strike up conversation at this point because, there's really just not a lot to talk about. As Lucha Underground progresses through this season, we'll definitely have more to talk about. I want to pretty much focus a lot on Lucha Underground this season, and most likely we'll do WrestleMania podcast as well, predictions and results afterwards. As we get closer, we'll have, obviously we'll have the feuds that are most likely going to be featured. But, like I said, right now there's not much to really converse about.
Yeah, I do want to start trying to follow ROH a little more tightly. We have talked about that, but it's really, I'm not sure what it is. It's just hard to follow on a weekly basis. I mean, you can find the episodes online, but it's just...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and they show it so much on TV, like, you don't know what the hell episode you're watching either, Like, you could be watching an episode from 2 weeks ago, and you can't really... just flick through the channel. It's on like 4 different channels. Every 2 hours it's on. It's kind of I don't know. It's kind of obnoxious in a way, but I don't actually know when it even airs. Like when they air the new episodes.
I've actually caught it a lot on NBC after the Sunday Night Football games, which I think is odd because NBC Universal is the parent company of USA. They air all the WWE programming, and then the local affiliates airing Ring of Honor in a post-NFL time slot, which is huge. I'm not sure. I can't imagine they're really terribly aware of it or concerned by it, but it doesn't seem like anything they'd be very happy with.
Yeah, that's true. But it's like, I don't know if those are new episodes or if they're older episodes. I believe they're not. I do think
they're current.
I don't know if they are or not. Because, every time I've seen it, it's after football and, just a random time. But I probably should look up and see exactly what day the newest one is. I'm not sure what day of the week it even comes out on. But I know that, if it's on, I'm going to watch it just for the fuck of it.
Yeah. And now is a pretty good time to get into the product. They just had their big show of the year, Final Battle, within the past couple months. They're having their prospect tournament as we speak, if I'm not mistaken. They do have a lot of rising talent.
Yeah.
And guys that have recently made a name for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised at how many guys come out of there. Like, and also, I haven't watched TNA and I don't even know how long, so I have no idea what's going on with that. So, I mean, I should probably just, if you watch an episode, you can pretty much catch up on everything that's going on. Because I feel like most of their storylines are the same week after week. But I'm assuming EC3 is probably still the champion.
No, EC3 actually dropped the belt and was pinned clean by Matt Hardy.
Wow.
Matt and EC3 actually did a double turn. Matt is now the heel. EC3 finally turned face.
Damn.
And Tyrus defected. He went with Matt. So things have been happening. Kurt Angle's on his retirement tour.
Huh. That's actually interesting. Maybe I'll watch it this week then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad.
No, it isn't bad at all.
It's still kind of hard to care about just for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it always has been.
Yeah, it's odd because it's not a bad product at all. It's just that it's the Bush League of, like, in comparison to WWE, it's that Bush League sort of feeling.
Yeah, that's the problem, is they try to be WWE, but they don't have the production values to look anything more than, oh, we're a lesser version of this product, and it does not flatter.
It doesn't work, yeah. That's why Lucha Underground is killing it, because they're completely different. They're a hybrid. And, I feel like TNA has good matches, but it's not... WWE is an entertainment company versus a wrestling company. That's how it's always been. But yeah, I'll probably watch TNA this week. I don't see why not. It ain't gonna hurt. So yeah, I don't know when we're gonna do our next podcast. Maybe we'll try and fit one in next week. I would like to start doing them on the weekends, but I know you guys probably can't do that. Tim, I have no idea what his schedule is. I've asked him a million times on the chat, and every time he tells me, I don't pay attention to what he said. But that's because I have like 18 different chats open on Facebook. So when people send me shit, I just kind of, it's read and then I don't actually read it. But yeah, we'll try and do another one, next week or the week after. Fastlane's in 2 weeks, so we can do one either before or after Fastlane. And we'll also do a WrestleMania special to end season 3. And hopefully we'll be back for season 4. So hopefully you stayed through this and, sort of agree with us. We would hope that you agree with us. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Same.